Best friend is his mother.
In 2018, the gang did a complete ranking of the big three of the slasher mainstream in Freddy, Michael, and Jason, 31 films ranked on the 31st day of October. The first entry in this series featured arguably the premier characters in the mainstream horror world. But for 2019, we decided to get to the next layer down. If not influential for those very big three we focused on just a year earlier. In another instance, we have a bona fide slasher star, who for some reason or another has always been in the B tier. Then we move on to a franchise that has the distinct privilege of having the good guy as the franchise star. The penultimate franchise in this gathering could be responsible for saving mainstream horror outright, while leading our least represented series to even have an existence. Already with another film due soon, this list may not be complete for much longer, but as we come to you on this Halloween 2019, this is 31 on 31, 2019, presented by the Autopstream crew.
Hello one, hello all, I'm CP. Welcome to this 2019 edition of 31 on 31. This is an Autopstream event, so obviously Bryan Lomax and Cody Leach are doing the exact same thing. We are ranking 31 franchised films here on October 31st, which I think is 6 franchises. We have the Psycho franchise, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, the Scream franchise, Evil Dead, Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, Child's Play, Scream, The Collection, right? I have a list in front of me, and we all have separate lists, and we're ranked for different reasons. Obviously, if we were ranking films strictly on quality, you'd know what number 1 is. These are our personal lists. All these films have separate meanings to us. Don't take any high or low rating as our definition of a good or bad film. That's merely our preference. Without further ado, here is number 31. And of course, it's Seed of Chucky. Seed of Chucky could be the most distant departure from that original Child's Play film. The thing about Seed of Chucky, I'm not sure if that movie is meant to be serious, if that movie is meant to be comedy. Are they making fun of horror itself? Are they making fun of the franchise itself? There are some straight up, genuine, epic movie moments in this film that, I don't know, are shoehorned. Even if we were just talking comedy, it's low rate, it's terrible. All we're missing are like classic banana peel gags and boing noises. Seed of Chucky is the worst film out of these 31, in my humble opinion, and I don't think it's close. Seed of Chucky is bad. I knew I didn't like it, but rewatching it in 2019, it's a joke. It's a joke that Jennifer Tilly, who's a rather good poker player, I can vouch for that.
And it just got better. She's flopped top set.
The fact that Jennifer Tilly was all about shitting on Child's Play 2019 when Seed of Chucky is in her resume, and that's true Chucky. Yeah. Number 30 for me, and you know, there's a little bit of distance between 31 and 30, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The New Beginning? Excuse me, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, starring Matthew McConaughey. Go figure. A lot of people ask me why I'm not such a big fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre if I'm such a Friday the 13th fan. Texas Chainsaw Massacre always seems to reset. I can't point to any two films in order that are alike. There's no sort of cohesion. Oh my goodness, Matthew, if you would have asked me anybody on this film who would have ended up being an Academy Award worthy actor in this film, I don't know, I would have guessed somebody who didn't have a line in this movie. I would have never guessed Matthew McConaughey, because there's chewing scenery, and there's Matthew McConaughey in The Next Generation.
I've got a mind. To slit your goddamn throat. Give you count to 10, give me a reason why I shouldn't. 9, 8. Don't be late. 7, 6, you better get it right.
You shouldn't kill me.
5, 4.
That's the other thing about the Chainsaw franchise. They're never sold on what Leatherface is and what his motives are. If he's good, bad. Jason, as plain as he is, it's pretty simple. He's just killing people. You're not really questioning things here. There's a bit of a, I don't know, Buffalo Bill aspect. You know, The Next Generation came out after Buffalo Bill. Suddenly, we've got
Oh, wait.
some makeup and stuff involved.
Was she a great big fat person?
Everything that you learn to expect in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie is just exploited and loses all its luster in this movie. You know, 5 minutes into this movie, mind you, I did a TCM binge. It really got cookie cutter. You just knew everybody was in on it. Okay, these kids are gonna somehow find their way to need help, and oh, they're all in on it. Okay, cool. That was 90 minutes.
I've got a mind.
Number 29, Texas Chainsaw 3D, which leaned on a gimmick. And this movie doesn't really have any real star power, which we'll get to it later. But I mentioned Matthew McConaughey, Renee Zellweger in part 4. Texas Chainsaw 3D, not much of anything, just it's shot well. But I would attribute that to the fact that it has that 3D gimmick. And, you know, cinematography alone isn't gonna carry this movie for me. That was the second to last Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie I watched. And I'm not kidding when I tell you they all blend together at a certain point. And the last, after the remake, they all just... Which brings me to 28, which is the most recent film in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, Leatherface. Well, this franchise, the continuity is constantly skipping back and forth, and you don't know what Leatherface is. You don't know, what his drive is, what his mental state is. I mean, it was a neat gag that was introduced into Leatherface, where you kind of had this whodunit, but like that's not enough for me. Okay, so we get a prequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but do we always have to lean on, mental health and mental facilities and all that? And it tried. I'll give it that. Leatherface certainly tried. The unfortunate nature, you know what? I'm gonna give Leatherface a little bit of credit, because it was the last thing I watched. I binged Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 through 8, or whatever it was, 1, 2, 3, 4, remake, beginning, 3D, Leatherface, over the course of 3 days, and I had enough. The change of pace, try to figure out who Leatherface is, that was cute, but I was just so shell-shocked it might change. I do remember feeling, well, this is refreshing. I could see people totally being down with this movie. I just get frustrated with the lack of continuity in the entire Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Hey, let's take a break from bashing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, shall we? Number 27 is Cult of Chucky. Speaking of continuity, Curse of Chucky was such a great rebound from Seed of Chucky, and then Cult, I don't know, whatever rules you made in your franchise, you've annihilated them and made a mockery of them. They always followed the narrative. Charles Lee Ray needs to get into Andy's body. They did that for 3 movies. Then they had to spin some wheels a little bit for Bride of Chucky. Then he had to get an amulet. But the important thing was he needed to get into another body. That was so important. Timing was important. And here we are in Cult, where he can just take control of multiple people at once. And, you know, do so easily, and all of the fear is gone. Again, Curse was grounded. Cult, I don't know what Don Mancini was thinking. He didn't get all that Seed of Chucky out of him yet. But Cult was a bit of a joke. Anything that is respectable about Curse of Chucky is like so completely undone with Cult. There's a couple moments. I mean, the homage to the kill in Bride of Chucky, that was neat. Bringing Andy back, you know, neat. But you're in this weird world where you're actually fourth wall breaking, yet still taking part in the universe that you started.
Did anyone ever tell you look exactly like Jennifer Tilly?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
I need a map for everything that's going on in this movie and how it makes sense. The fuck? There were slight moments, but once we had a bunch of Chuckies talking to each other, making jokes about each other's hair, it wasn't that.
You fucking with me?
If you're gonna change the rules, do a better job.
Came across this groovy new spell on voodooforDummies.com.
Like everything was out the window, of course.
Now I can be me and me and me.
Of course they had to redo the franchise. Where would you go with the Child's Play franchise after Cult of Chucky? What, he takes over everybody in the world? Every woman, man, and child is now Charles Lee Ray? Of course you have to reset. You Don Mancini defenders and you diehards who try to think and act and defend Cult like it's, you know, not this disaster that is a giant pit that you need to explain out of. Come on, guys. You got Seed and Cult within 3 movies, and it needed some freshening up. 26 is Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, with what's his cock from Lord of the Rings. He doesn't have long hair here. Oh, and also the other what's his cock from Dawn of the Dead.
This is Michael Rapport, or as that motherfucker CP calls me, what's his cock from True Romance?
I really should remember actors' names. Comment section down below. What are their names? Quick, go. This is the movie that follows Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is quirky, bizarre, and this is way more grounded, but it's just kind of stale.
You're the last thing I saw before I died. I die a happy man.
And this is where you start realizing anybody that our pro-tags come across in these isolated towns are somehow related and somehow going to be evil and helping the whole family. I got to see the alternate ending, which was interesting. They shot 2 different endings, and I guess the ratings board kind of went crazy. It doesn't make it much better, but watching it on Blu-ray, seeing the extra stuff, what could have been, doesn't change my ranking. I do like, however, that William Butler was in this, who's also in a Friday the 13th. Actually, he's in a bunch of not so great horror movies. See, can you tell how much I'm remembering about these movies? And why? I don't know what it was about the first 4 films. I had to open up with that same. August 18th, 1973. What we know. We know. If you're going to remind us of that, why not stay true to some of that? Because 1, 2, 3, 4 are just so drastically different from one another, except for the fact that they open with that damn title screen. Seed of Chucky is atrocious. I can point to things and say, oh my God, the Britney Spears scene. Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, just kind of happens, and there's not much to it. Like, oh, Ken Foray. Hey, I remembered his name now too.
Who the hell are you?
Oh, there's a fight by a truck. Swamp. There's a scene in a swamp. Yeah, all right, that's new to the franchise, I guess. Number 25, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, which is the first prequel, the prequel to the remake. Why? You know, as somebody who is about origin stories and wants a Pamela Voorhees origin story, stuff like this makes me understand why when I say that people cringe, because I didn't care about anything that was going on here, and it's so unfortunate because the remake was such a great way to restart things, and then you made the beginning unnecessary. You had something there with the 2003 remake, and I got to see more of Arlie Ermey.
Starve to death or survive.
Cool. The thing about the big three, Jason, Michael, Freddy, why people have them as like icons of horror is there's not much to them. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. Jason's just out for revenge. Freddy's just, well, out for revenge. He's trying to make sure all the kids pay, all the kids of the parents that screwed him over pay. And Michael Myers is just, you know, chaos incarnate. There's not much to him. He's just off on a spree. Leatherface, it's just they keep trying to change the story and make it a little bit different, and here he is, and sympathize for him in this movie, but you know, fear him in this one, and you know, sometimes he's a rabid dog, sometimes he's a wounded dog, sometimes it's the first one. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, watching them in heavy succession in 3 days, that may not have been good for my scoring process, especially considering the beginning is what, just 2 films before Leatherface. It's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna keep retelling the story and restarting how things start. Anywho, I digest. Next, Psycho 4, The Beginning. Ooh. Olivia Hussey has the same exact acting style as she did in Romeo and Juliet, and this movie was made decades later. It got on me. It grated me, I'll tell you that much.
Ha! Girl! Yes, girl! Mama's little girl!
Also, lots of weird stuff going on. Again, another movie where a prequel tells you things that you knew, and then shows you things that you just didn't need to see. It's weird. Film is all about show, don't tell. And when it comes to horror franchises and prequels, don't show us anything. Don't show us anything before what we know, please. You know, we figured out Norman's relationship with his mother was a little off. Most of the half of the movie being told through a story by a phone call gimmick. Yeah. Unnecessary movie, showed us stuff we didn't need to see, talked about stuff we kind of thought and again didn't need to see. And again, the acting from Olivia Hussey, not that great. It felt very TV movie. Number 23 is Psycho 3. Psycho 3, I don't know, started, or at least it feels like it started to try to be mainstream slashers. And the one thing I didn't notice until I'm watching Psycho 3 that, oh, this movie's got nudity. We didn't really have nudity in Psycho 1 or 2. Yeah, this is the one that's directed by Anthony Perkins, so I don't know what that says Maybe Anthony Perkins was just like, you know what this franchise needs? Some tits. I don't want this from Psycho. Psycho was a stronger franchise, and to see Psycho 3 descend into, regular old slasher stuff, it was just disappointing. Some of the motives of lots of characters just didn't make much sense. Shocker in a horror movie, go figure.
Watch the guitar.
Number 22, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I don't know what to say about this movie. I don't hate it. I don't know what this movie wants to be. Why are there so many of these kind of movies in horror franchises?
It's the meat. Don't skimp on the meat.
There's always these departure movies where it's like, this is blank, but we're gonna try it this way now. From the subgenre that is merely formula, you get stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which I believe the rumor was that Tobe Hooper really didn't want to do a sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Cannon Productions, the Jason Blum of the 80s, they just threw money his way to please just do another one, and he had fun with it, and that's clear.
I don't want to hear it. I want to see it. Bright lights, big titties.
I'd much rather rank Life Force here. It's hokey, but not terrible. The ending makes you think that what? There's another person to worry about. Where was that third act taking place? What? Just so strange. Dennis Hopper's in this movie. Dennis Hopper. Again, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre alum. You could probably fill an Academy Award film with just TCM alum. I didn't hate this movie. I just kind of scratched my head through a lot of it and didn't care, which is frustrating. Number 21 is Evil Dead, the first one. Bye guys. Thanks for visiting my video. Again, refreshing myself with all of these movies in 2019. I kind of get bored with the movie. Shocker. With all that engaging camera work and a tree fucks a person, and I was still somehow bored. I had this higher in my memory and rewatched it and said, wow, no, this looks its age, which isn't a crime or anything. It just, I have the Evil Dead franchise ranked differently than I did going into this. I'm sorry to say that Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead, for as much as they did with the little to no budget they had, is my least favorite of the franchise. I don't think these movies are terrible. I don't think Evil Dead is bad. I realize we're not even a third of the way into this ranking yet, but this is an okay movie. I'm not, just because it's ranked in the bottom 10, I'm not saying that it's bad. It just doesn't do it for me. That's the best way to put it. Number 20 is Child's Play 3. The opening 2/3, I'll give Child's Play credit, and this is something you can't say about many horror franchises. Child's Play 1 to 2 to 3 had the continuity. Andy was important. Chucky needed to get Andy's body. There's a lot of contrivance in this movie, a lot of shoehorning reasons, and why would they have a military school?
I volunteer as tribute!
Okay, whatever. There's all that. The weird hair cutting.
Presto, you're bald.
That, strange. But I wish the third act were the whole movie. I wish you just somehow have Andy accidentally, or not even accidentally, Andy's at a theme park and it just so happens that the Chucky doll is there, and we're chasing Andy around. People think the kid is crazy again. I don't know, but the third act really did it for me, and I was just like, why can't this be the whole movie? But there's 2/3 to that movie that I really didn't like, so that tells you how much I wish the third act were its own thing. If I were ranking just the first 2/3, this would be considerably lower.
You gotta be
fucking kidding me?
But there was something there. The fucking death at the end is gnarly as hell. Pretty badass way to chop off a doll's face, which somehow bleeds.
I'm new and improved.
Number 19 is Scream 3. And if Scream 3 is the least good film in your franchise, you're doing okay. A little convoluted with the story and how they go about things, sure. I remember the soundtrack being really good. There are probably those of you that hate this movie just because Creed plays in the beginning. And I wish Friday the 13th, the worst Friday the 13th, was Scream 3 quality. That's what I'll say.
Because true trilogies are all about going back to the beginning.
Number 18 is Psycho 1998, the Psycho remake. And I don't know, some of you might be screaming blasphemy, but everything you like about the original Psycho is in this movie. It's in color. There are minor differences. Gus Van Sant, putting frames of things that are different. I mean, Anne Heche's spread ass cheeks in the shower scene, there's that. You get the full peach. Other than that, things you enjoy about the original Psycho are in the 1998 Psycho. If I could do a cover of Stairway to Heaven, and we'll get Greta Van Fleet to do it. You know what I mean. If you're saying 1998 is bad, I'd like to hear your reasons, because the film itself is the 1960. It's the same, and the original isn't bad. It's just a cover band. Number 17 is The Collection. It's unfortunate. When we got this list together, we were moving things around and we needed a franchise with two. Well, last year, Halloween, that was a complete 31, which now there's going to be more Halloweens. So that's an incomplete list now. And as we speak, there's at least plans, or they've started shooting, or they've shot a sequel to The Collection. But as we record this, there's only 2 movies in the Collector franchise, and it helps make 31, so just shut up. I question this movie way more than the original, but that opening scene, that's a really, really, really gnarly kill. It gets a little silly, gets a little all over the place. I really wish they ended it differently, but now knowing that we have another one coming, I'm infinitely intrigued as to where the collection's gonna go from there. But like the whole factory or whatever he was doing, keeping those drug people, like, what? You're lucky. You're lucky The Collection that opening massacre was there, because there's a lot of head-scratching moments in The Collection. Number 16 is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first film to use on August 18th, 1973. That screen, noting the quality when I was talking about Evil Dead before. This movie looks its age, and it's everything that screams 1974. I don't know why, for some reason. I'd rather watch Evil Dead every time, but I just feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a better film, and you ask me why, and I can't tell you. That when I rewatched it, obviously that was the first of the bunch, and the whole gimmick of not trusting people, that wasn't blown to hell yet. As an isolated original film, it's quite scary. Leatherface, quite scary when you don't know much about him. He's just this dude who's wearing people's skin on his face. Fucking nuts. That closing shot when the girl finally gets away, just covered in blood, and that laughter, that crazy laughter, the relief that she's finally making it away. Such a powerful, like, everything that led to that, just awesome. And as far as quality of picture and sound and stuff like that are concerned, it's not there. But I feel like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre builds quite nicely to that crescendo there, and sticks with you. You know, I might be having this a little low for some people's taste, and I wish I can go back and unwatch some of the sequels because maybe I'd put it higher. Number 15 is Child's Play 2, and Cody just unsubbed me. It's a good movie. Again, big fan of the fact that they're keeping up the continuity with Andy, but some of it felt contrived again. He's a foster kid, and like you know his story. Why would you have the doll that he's associated with murder and all that put aside? Really bizarre cinematography too. I don't know if that was on purpose to get that vague fisheye. There's some redeemable deaths, that's for certain. What's her tits from Speed as the teacher.
Sometimes I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion.
Again with the Child's Play sequel. The third act. Oh, that whole toy, what was it, a factory? I don't even know what the fuck you call that place. The juxtaposition of all the color and everything you associate with just a bunch of kids' toys, and just the hideous ways that Chucky's getting poured over, and I don't know, he's basically soup by movie's end. I don't know. See, so this is a movie where the second half I thought was okay, and the first half I was just like, being a little tough on these movies. I realize that we're halfway through, but I'm not saying at this point that these movies are bad. So I guess a lot of these movies are okay in my book, so don't hold my number to any real regard. It's not about the number for me. It's just, preference. Steak or hamburger, they're both good. And it's just my opinion anyway. I'm wrong, you're right. Just like when you have your list, you're wrong and I'm right. Why am I defending myself? You clicked on it. Number 14 is Bride of Chucky. This is officially movies that I enjoy. Bride of Chucky, for a while, was one of my favorite, well, obviously, one of my favorite Child's Play movies. And I thought they did the comedy and horror thing. They balanced it so well. The tone is a little off, but it's dark humor. There's shit that happens in this movie that, there's some funny death scenes. You're laughing at murder. Congratulations, people. We've made it as a society. And the intent is to make you laugh. The intent is to make you say, oh shit. And the balance, it may be a little much. A non-horror fan will probably say it's way too much, but I felt like because of Bride of Chucky and how well it did what it was trying to do, we got all crazy with Seed and Cult, because it's funny, it's silly, dolls having sex, and then of course ending with a pregnancy that somehow is super fast.
It would take 3 or 4 sequels just to do it justice.
I'm perfectly fine with what that film is. And you know what? This list has both Tillys. Can you believe that? That just inexplicably, that just hit me. Number 13 is Evil Dead 2, and maybe I've won some of you back with this. Didn't make the top 10, but it's a movie I'll go back and watch gladly. All the same reasons that I nitpicked around the original Evil Dead. Sam Raimi with some brilliant cinematography. The original Evil Dead, I would say, is a horror, and Evil Dead 2 really kind of embraces the absurdity of things. And I don't like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 departing from the original, but Evil Dead 2, I'm the exact opposite, and I can't explain why. They both kind of do the same thing, where the sequel, you know what, I better stop because I'm going to confuse myself and then just render this list moot. Evil Dead 2 is just it's a way better experience, I guess, is my best defense. Evil Dead 2 is just a good time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, I'm just left scratching my head a little bit. There's funny, strange, and then there's strange, and I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is strange. Does that make sense, please?
Groovy.
Number 12, Curse of Chucky. If you told me after I saw this movie that the path that the franchise would have went on, I would have been like, no, you're crazy. They They figured it out. It's fixed.
What a story, Mark.
Working with the money that they weren't given, kind of a tragedy that this is straight to home media. But the tone is perfect. The confinement of a house, the confinement literally of our lead character. It's done so masterfully in this movie. Sure, towards the end it gets a little...
Play with this.
Andy! It's the best Mancini child's play film in the 21st century. That's easy for me to say that. Number 11, Scream 2. The tongue-in-cheek nature in which it knew it was doing a sequel, and they just embraced it.
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck.
They knew what they were doing. The Scream franchise is just, I think it might be the most important franchise as far as mainstream slashers are concerned, because Scream just kind of reset everything, and even with the sequels, especially 2, said, listen, we know how horror sequels are. We're gonna do that. We're gonna talk about it.
It's a dumb-ass white movie about some dumb-ass white girls getting their white asses cut the fuck up.
But anyway, hold my beer.
The brothers are gonna kick his ass.
Really strange. Gotta give the Scream franchise credit for having different killers all the time. Spoiler, but a quite enjoyable second entry.
10.
Number 10 is The Collector. There's certain horror tropes that are abused to death that I just like. I like isolation. It's the most believable thing. The easiest starting point for horror is isolation. And The Collector, it feels a bit Saw in nature, but you know, with the booby traps around the house. Another thing that always seems to get grazed over when it comes to horror icons is the look. And The Collector, I don't know what that mask is made of. I don't know what it is about the eyes that make them look sort of blue, but that is a badass look. A rather simple black shirt, black pants. I don't know what the shit you call that mask. Looks like, you know, plastic goop around a head, but it's still frightening. And you can still see mouth movements, you know, licking his mouth, gritting his teeth. There's a human under there. You just don't know what the fuck's making him go. Well, I'll tell you what's making him go is setting up fucking bear traps in the middle of a house. Number 9 is Scream 4. Yeah, Scream 4 is my second favorite Scream film. Again, Scream, I think, is the most important franchise for mainstream slashers, mainstream horror. The genre was dying, and you know, the first film came around and rejuvenated everything about slashers, and you know, perhaps to a fault if you look at some of the stuff that came after it. But Scream 4 came out at a time where the torture porn and Saw and all those movies were kind of a big deal. The Blumhouse films that were just...
It sucks. It's not scary. It's gross. I hate all that torture porn shit.
Yikes. Here's a movie that, you know, just old school mainstream slasher that is somewhat believable. There's a little bit of stretching to do, but I bought it, and for some reason, I think the hurdle of being a film like that at that time is way better than Scream 2 being the movie that it is at its time. Like Scream 4 and Scream 2 they're close. They're, you know, flip a coin, and I could probably change my mind, but due to how much was surrounded Scream 4 and how much it just worked. It was such a breath of fresh air, because at that point it was like Saw, Hostel, and Paranormal Activity, and oh, that's right, we can do slashers.
A bunch of articulate teens sit around and deconstruct horror movies until Ghostface kills them one by one. It's been done to death.
Poking fun at itself without being an outright joke. Love the movie.
This is for Tupac.
Number 8, Child's Play 2019. I got to see it a second time before doing this, which last year, number 8, was Halloween 2018. 8 is my spot for the new movie of the year. But this time I actually saw the movie twice, and I enjoyed it more on the second viewing. I really enjoy all the subtext with the parenting. I actually enjoyed it more on a second viewing with our technology and just how much control we don't have. The Chucky doll is a little broken. He's just trying to make sure that Andy's happy, and he's confused. And I just totally buy into that. And again, when you do a mass session of these movies, you got to remember that I watched Seed of Chucky and Cult of Chucky, 2 out of the 3 movies before watching Child's Play 2019. And what a breath of fresh air. And again, waiting a couple months, sitting on it, rewatching it last week. The only problem I would probably say about Child's Play 2019 is the doll isn't iconic. It's not Chucky the icon. But shit, I want a sequel to this and go somewhere else with it. They left a path where you can take some certain steps with this movie. And I just thought it was a really well-made movie. Believe it or not, it's one of my favorite horror movies of 2019. More so than Midsommar. Number 7, Psycho 2. A sequel that takes place a couple of decades after the original.
Ah, very good. And your son?
Everything that happens in the movie, it kind of makes sense because, yeah, all right, so he served a prison sentence and now he's out, or he wasn't, he's out. They covered the passage of time thing perfectly. Listen, here's the reason why this movie's so much later than the original. Blah. Everything that sets this movie up is done so well. The spiteful family members of victims.
I'll have the police and a doctor out there before you're in any danger. Then they'll have to act on our petition.
The lack of confidence, the lack of self-assurance that Norman Bates has throughout the movie, it just works. It works on every level. The only thing that I guess you can complain about is, like, as far as slashers are concerned, there's not much there. This is a story. Like, this is a movie that's telling a story. It's not about, killing teens every 20 minutes. But the story's incredible. Number 6, Army of Darkness, which is the 3rd Evil Dead movie. If you take my complaints about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and my complaints about, or not my complaints, but my pros of Evil Dead, they're totally hypocritical and contradictory and double standards. It's just all of that. I love how much of a further step away Army of Darkness is. It's just legit bonkers, and it's just a hell of a time. Another movie that, again, in the slasher genre, we're not talking about the right stuff here. Psycho 2 isn't a slasher. That's a psychological thriller, whereas Army of Darkness is, I don't know what, a fucking fantasy adventure movie. Like, sure, there's horror elements to it, but fucking old school skeleton army. And I couldn't, I can't even explain the movie to you now. I try to tell me what genre that is. Somebody probably figured it out in the comments section, but we're talking about slashers. 31 and 31 is about slashers. Army of Darkness is a really fun, great movie. I don't think I'd ever call it a slasher, but perhaps unfairly to the other films that are ranked in this, but Army of Darkness is a great movie. Wouldn't call it a slasher.
See this? This is my boomstick!
Something that I would call a slasher is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. My favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie is the remake. This was a tremendous breath of fresh air on the heels of The Next Generation, or the whatever the hell the Matthew McConaughey one is. I think my thing with this movie, especially considering it was the director of the Friday the 13th remake, it feels kind of Friday the 13th-y. And Leatherface, there's mystery to him, and that's the best part. The film works so much better that way. It moves nicely, it's got a quick pace. Jessica Biel is just supper. Let me just say, I'm actually kind of glad there was no nudity in that movie, because just, bravo. I don't know, that's an extra 10 points. Jessica Biel running around in it. in a slightly damp white shirt and some tight pants. I forgot what I was talking about. Number 4, the original Child's Play. Again, another movie that probably couldn't be called a slasher. For most of the movie is a bit of a thriller, wackiness, a doll running around killing people, but everybody else in the movie thinks the kid is doing it, and they have reason to believe so. And this is a lot closer to a slasher than stuff like Army of Darkness and stuff like that, but it's a good movie. I'm trying to think of kills that are legendary. Well, the Voodoo Man, that's a pretty fucked up kill. Let me take that back. I was about to say that there's nothing really memorable about the kills in this movie, except maybe Chucky himself. All right, the Voodoo Man and Chucky at the end. But again, really good movie. It's a great movie. Is it a slasher? It's not a something dies every 10 minutes. And the birth of Brad Dourif's Chucky. Brad Dourif.
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?
It's much like Freddy. Child's Play is like Nightmare on Elm Street's, like, I don't know, kissing cousin or something. There's some very similar things to the nature in which Brad Dourif and Robert Englund act, and how they their characters change over the course of those franchises. Child's Play 1, some of the things that he does and says is, you know, it's darkly funny.
I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Number 3, the Fede Alvarez version. That is some incredible stuff right there. And sometimes we get lucky. And Fede Alvarez, where did you come from, sir? Another movie that it seems, at least in my case, a lot of these movies that have been redone. I'm not going to put Child's Play in this argument because Child's Play is done modernly and different and like very different. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, both are movies that when they're redone, I found them, maybe because of the pacing, maybe because of the HD quality, I don't know, but I found them smoother. They went down easier. And Evil Dead 2013, it doesn't shoehorn ideas. Everything makes sense. It's modern day, but they're trying to avoid using phones, and somebody's trying to kick drugs, and that's why they're there. They're isolation. It slowly descends into madness, not super wacky shit. They take a turn from your usual Evil Dead franchise type stuff. It's easy to buy it. And then I was trying to say that there wasn't much iconic about Child's Play. It's just a great movie. Evil Dead's a really good movie, and the fucking raining blood scene, I need that as a painting. That was just legendary on top of a really good movie. Fede Alvarez keeps teasing in Evil Dead 2. I'm curious to see what his Evil Dead 2 would be, if he would take a different turn or what. But Evil Dead, I love that movie. Is it a slasher? Probably not. Noticing a pattern here in this year's 31 on 31? Number 2, the original Psycho. An extremely important film, a brilliant film, perhaps the best film in this 31. But for my taste, it's my second favorite, something I would go to second most out of the lot here. I would suggest you watching 7852, which is a documentary on the shower scene, or if you only want to watch 3 minutes worth of somebody telling that story, I covered the Psycho shower scene in a short YouTube video. The importance of it. Psycho's a big deal. There's so many revolutionary, groundbreaking things that happen in Psycho. Killing off the main character early. Look into Psycho. Look into how important it was and how people reacted to it. And you just wonder, man, if we had something like that today that had that effect, what would it be? The marketing techniques, that's marketing, that's not the film. Really great film, but it's not my favorite. It's the best movie as far as technically speaking is concerned, but it isn't my number one. My number one is Scream. The first Scream, again, Psycho, super important for horror slashers. You know, that shower scene might have created a subgenre on its own. Scream might have saved mainstream horror, slashers, all of the above. It was released at a time where horror was shit. I mean, shit, that the last Texas Chainsaw Massacre was somewhere right before this. And then here comes Scream, which kind of addresses a weary public and says, listen, we know the genre's a little fucked up, but we're gonna respect it a little bit. They do the Psycho thing with Drew Barrymore. It depends on what side of the argument you're on, but it created a new set of slashers. I mean, a lot of watered down stuff came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, but it got the public back into mainstream horror, and because it was really, really good. I mean, it was genuinely a whodunit.
Everybody's a suspect!
You were concerned, you wanted to know, oh, who's the killer? Because they treated it as such. Much like Bryan will tell you that Friday the 13th isn't a whodunit. You don't care who Pamela is before finding out, which is a fair argument. But in this film, the first act is incredible. The revelation at the end, and to find out, oh, there's two of them. Wait a minute. And then you just start thinking, and it's a movie that rewards multiple watches because you're trying to figure out, okay, who's doing what where, and oh yeah, obviously if so-and-so is in jail, now this one's that. I don't know why I'm trying to avoid saying names because I just spoiled the entire everything for you. Perhaps this is my Friday the 13th Part 6 showing, but Kevin Williamson very much molded this film on Jason Lives, which is Friday the 13th 6. That's not why I'm ranking it number one. I'm just telling you what kind of taste I have. Movies that are a little bit of everything, but really good at horror. And if you're gonna do comedy, make sure you let everybody know about it and don't get too crazy with it. I don't know. I contradicted myself, 50 times in this thing? Okay, so that does it for the 2019 edition of 31 on 31 for me. Please go check out Brian Lomax's video and Cody Leach's video, which will be down below. At some point, I'm imagining the three of us are going to get together on an Autopstream and discuss our varying lists and talk even more about that. So you're going to have like a special behind the scenes, an extended deleted scenes special feature of our lists and how we got to certain things, and we're all going to argue about stuff because I think my listing of Child's Play 2 is really going to bother Cody, and I think Brian's top half is going to bother both of us, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. So by all means, down below, let me know what your 31 is. It'll be intriguing. I can almost guarantee everybody's list will be quite different in certain areas. So that's the fun thing. Join the movie group on Facebook, Movies That Move Me, and we can discuss this a little further. It'll be the theme as it's Halloween. We could all discuss our 31 and what our reasons are for where we are and where we got there. And, did you happen to watch 8 really shitty movies in a row and maybe that affected some of your ranking? Well, it did me. Anyway, if you enjoyed the time, do me a favor and click that thumb. Subscribe if you're new. And a shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for continuing to support me and help me make content like this. Otherwise, I have been CP. You haven't. Have a day. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Number 4. Number 10 are some memorable ass deaths. There are probably those of you that I like Creed, and I quite liked this movie. Well, I didn't. Fuck it. The Evil Dead remake. Evil Dead. That's it for this edition. Dish. By all means, let me know your list down below. Shut that fucking dog up.